Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Upside Down by Tobias Tak. Tobias Tak was a Dutch artist. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2020. I just found out on the internet his other passion, which maybe was a stronger passion, I think he did it much more than comic book work, was he was a dancer and a choreographer. And he performed with all these prestigious dance companies. I had no idea. I've owned this for over 20 years. This is an example of this keeps happening to me since I've started this channel. It's forced me to reread things. I just never had time to reread comics. I always had new stuff to read. But now that I'm rereading stuff, I'm amazed. A lot of the time, I'm so happily surprised that something that I read 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I put on my shelf, thought, yeah, that was good. And now I reread it and I'm like, I fucking love this. I really like this comic. It's just a very unique vision going on. As you can tell by this cover, just very, definitely his own style. A very interesting artist. This came out in 2002. And it was published by Swing Street, who I've never heard of. Maybe they're a Dutch publisher, even though this is all in English. Tobias Tak designed this as well. And kind of interesting color choices here. It's bright orange. So we start off, there's two stories in this. And the first one is Klazina Upside Down. So, just look at this art. It reminds me of a bunch of people, but I just can't place it who. I love it. It's just crazy. It's kind of like almost ugly. A lot of the people in this are kind of homely and weird looking. But it really, for me, it helps with the humor. I don't know why I like artists who aren't that polished. They seem funnier to me. Like guys like Daniel Klein, Aileen Kaminsky-Crumb, a bunch of artists like that, Johnny Ryan. It's almost like their crudeness makes the art funnier. Sometimes good illustration gets in the way of humor. I don't know why, but it just seems like humor sometimes is best conveyed with kind of weird art like this. So it says, once upon a time, the witch Momba plans revenge against her old enemy, the wizard Gaboon. And here we see Moomba. Look at that nose. It's so kind of repulsive. It looks like some kind of alien sex organ. But I love his cross-hatching. Look at this weird, she's wearing a dress with these little fish just on the hem. And it looks like maybe tentacles coming out of her arm, her sleeve. He's just got a weird imagination, Tobias Tak. So she basically makes this weird plant, puts it in a pot, gets on her broom and flies over to Gaboon's castle and leaves it there. Meanwhile, we meet Gaboon. So this is Gaboon, his cousin Klazina, and Schlenzi, who I think Schlenzi is his girlfriend, but it seems like she's always cooking and cleaning. It's almost like she's the maid, but I think they have a relationship. And these are our main characters. These are the main characters in many of Tobias Tak's stories. I wouldn't know this except I read about it on the internet because this is all I have by him. I did notice that he was in Hotwire, the anthology, edited by Glenn Head, and I own those, but I forgot what Tobias Tak stories were in there. I probably haven't read those in 20 years. So, just so you know, these characters are his, his main characters. I love the way he draws Schlenzi, looking like Marlene Dietrich, but taking her features and kind of warping them, exaggerating them even further. Look at those eyelids. They're crazy. But I love the way he draws her hair, too. And then on the opposite end, Klazina, look how she's drawn. This is totally like Justin Green or almost like Aileen Kaminsky-Crumb. It's a little more attractive than Aileen Kaminsky-Crumb, but still pretty bizarre looking. So she finds this plant, and this little guy grows out of it. He says, "I'm Kiss, that's me." But when I flip around, my name is sick, kiss backwards. And he basically jumps over. So this whole comic is almost like an homage to that old comic strip from I believe the teens, maybe the 1920s. I think it was just called The Upside Downs. And every strip could be read and then flipped. The whole page could be flipped, and then you could read it. Everything was drawn so that when it was turned upside down, it would be a different drawing, which it's an amazingly clever thing to do. So all these characters, a lot of these characters do that. Klazine is very taken with Kiss / Sick. She's about this little fantasy of kissing him. But then the pot turns into this almost monster, and it sucks up both of them, and takes them to the land of upside down. And as we can see, that sun, here, I'll give you an example. See the sun? It's got that face. When you flip it, it's just a little different face. So it's all stuff like that. Really nice drawing here. I love this. Her face just makes me laugh. So, Kiss does that flip it around thing again. And see, he's a totally different character. It's some guy's head with a turban. This is just like the Upside Downs. This character comes around. She says, "Oh, nice hat, but huge ears." And I like this one. She says, "Hi, I'm Natasha. But back to front, my name reads, Satan." And it turns in, when you flip her, this creature turns into the scary bird who attacks Klazina. She runs away in fear. Another great full-page illustration with all these upside-downy characters. Here's another guy. "Hi, I'm Live. Live and let live, that's my motto. But now my name is Evil." When he flips around. This is so silly, and it reminds me of a comic strip from the 20s or the teens. Just so bizarre, kind of funny, but not really that funny. I mean, I find it funny just by the way he draws Klazina, but these punny names are just really goofy. So he zaps her with this bolt, and look what it does. Well, first he breaks her up into pieces, and then puts her back together all wrong. Her hands are where her feet should be. He says, "Now you're one of us." Meanwhile, back in Gaboon's castle, Schlenzi is hanging out. Gaboon goes to get Klazini in her room, and he finds the pot. So he is sucked into the land as well. Klazini is very happy to see him, not just because this is her cousin, but because he's a wizard. And he says, "First thing we must do is stand on our heads, and then something will happen. Maybe." He's not the most competent magician. He's kind of a goof. He's a big goofball. But he does have some powers. So they get sucked up into this box, this flying box. There's some more upside down craziness going on, where the ceiling becomes the roof. I'm sorry, the ceiling becomes the floor. There's a little thing that says, "Don't drink this tea." So he says, "We're in the land of upside down, so we have to do everything backwards. So we will drink the tea." And it seems like maybe it's a psychedelic tea. Interesting drawing here. It's not entirely consistent. It doesn't matter, though. It's just all great drawing. I think Tobias Tak just, he was a dancer. That was his main thing. I think he just did comics for fun and just drew what he felt like drawing. But now they've got two faces. They've got eyeballs on their neck. So I guess when you flip them, they could have a second face. And then they meet this little weird creature. And he's floating on this cloud. He says, "Come on, step out of the cloud. Get out of that box," which they do. And they say, "Are you going to turn upside down now? Get on your head?" He says, "I'm not going to turn around, but I can turn this land upside down." This is kind of an amazing, it's just vertiginous the way he draws this. He's flipping the whole world basically upside down. And then he's in this boat, and it looks like our heroes are drowning. A lot of the characters we've seen already are in the boat, and they're just like, goodbye, fuck you. So they sink down into this ocean. Look at this crazy sea flora, like weird, bizarre outcrops and coral. And they meet someone else, Anna. And I think it's interesting that it's a palindrome, so her name doesn't change. So then Schlinzy is wondering what happened to Gaboon and Klazina, and she finds that pot. Now the pot is just a simple flower pot. It's not a giant gaping monster, gaping maw. And she drops it upside down. It flies upwards and starts to grow. And it spits out our heroes, Gaboon and Klazina. There's some fish and seawater too. So Schlinzy inadvertently saves the day. And she says, oh, this ugly pot. I better throw it out. And Mumba, the witch, happens to pass the window. And she's thinking to herself, time for a new hat. And the flower pot lands on her head. That is such a dumb slapstick ending. But once again, I'm laughing out loud. It's so stupid and silly. But I don't know, just the way he draws everything. Oh, God, that's good. Next, we have Klazina Goes Polka Dotty. And one day, Klazina was visited by Gaboon and Schlinzy. And God, he draws Schlinzy so great. So Gaboon gets really drunk. Apparently, Schlinzy has the power to change her dress just by thinking about it. Gaboon keeps telling these stories, bragging about himself, and Schlinzy keeps correcting him, like, it really didn't happen that way. And we see Gaboon is more of a goof, because he is. So Klazina goes out to buy some coffee so her cousin can sober up. And she finds this new store called the Polka Dot. Dotted dresses for sale. And inside is this weird character. Find a bigger picture of him. That's his face. And he's very nice. And he says, ooh, let me show you a dress that'll be perfect for you. And I'll give you a special price even. So she's like, oh, what a nice man. She looks in the mirror, and the mirror is like a funhouse mirror. It makes you look better. So she's like, ooh, what a slimming effect. But then look in the mirror when she turns her back. Her image turns into this like monstrous creature. His name is Mr. S. Frenick. As soon as she leaves, he kind of has this sinister cackle. He says, I'm sure we'll meet again very soon. So as soon as she walks away, the polka dot store disappears. Why, I'm sorry, guys, it's the Dolka pot, because it's shaped like a pot. So just a little goofy wordplay once again. So it starts to rain, and all of the dots on her dress start falling off. One of them gets bigger and bigger in the ground, and she gets sucked into it like a whirlpool. She says like a Hoover. And once again, Klazina is drawn into some other weird dimension. And this is, I believe, the polka dot dimension, or the dot dimension. She lands on this giant cushiony dot, luckily. And she meets this guy. And he's kind of a rude old cuss. She's asking questions. He just thinks she's a moron. He's like, don't you know where you are? And she's like, no, I don't. That's what I'm asking. So this guy's got to run off. He's got to get his pet dot home. And then all of a sudden her dress starts to rebel. And it pulls itself off of her. And she's just left with her girdle. And then she meets this guy, Porcius, the lackey of the Marquis. This drawing just like, it's like Hieronymus Bosch or something. It's such a weird character design, this, especially this beast of burden here. I don't know why, this is so funny to me. Klazina in her girdle. Klazina is kind of taken with him. She says, what a handsome man, she thinks. And he invites her to a ball at the palace. And she says, I'm not really dressed. And he says, oh, you're fine. You have a ribbon in your hair. That's all that matters. So Klazina's kind of flirting with him. And then the dress doesn't like this. The dress is basically like, you're not paying attention to me. I'll teach you. And the dress puts itself on Porcius. And Porcius can't get it off, and he freaks out. Oh, shit, guys. Hold on a second. I got some water on this. Damn it. Oh, it's not near mint anymore. Now it's very fine condition. So, then these bunnies come out of nowhere, and they're singing this song. Hello, we're the Bun Bun Bunnies, stars of the Folly Funnies. It's a very silly, goofy song. And then all the bunnies start banging into each other with tremendous force, knocking themselves out. And then earlier on, they warned her about the ruler of this land. They said, at 4:04, run for your life. And so it's 4:04. Everyone's saying, run, run. And we see Mr. S. Frenick again. And he's not so nice anymore. And apparently his full name is Mr. Scissor Frenick. Once again, goofy wordplay. It's such a strange face. It's bizarre. No, not as strange as Klazina's, though. Oh, my God. And then the bunnies, all their heads... I'm sorry, I should mention. First, Scissor Frenick cuts off... He's cutting everything in the forest. He cuts off all the heads of the rabbits who were knocked out. All the heads slide together into a sort of string, making a shawl. So Klazina puts the shawl around her neck, and she's like, ooh, what a pretty shawl. She loves it. And the bunny heads start to sing again. And she thinks it's very cute. Until 44 minutes later, the song really starts getting on her nerves. So she throws the shawl away. And she goes through this portal, this gate. And then, God, I love this crazy drawing here. That is some fun surrealism. And she says, ooh, look at all these dots. Now there's even more dots. And one of these dots is like some weird, has tentacles and grabs her. So Portia's still running with that dress on him. He's mortified. He's like, oh, if anybody sees me, I'll never be able to live this down. And he says, look, a flying saucer. It's really just another one of those dots, but it's like a portal in the sky. So the dot sucks up Portius. And now we cut away to back home. Schlenzi and Gaboon are looking for Klazina once again. And all of a sudden this dot appears and Portius is kind of ejected from it. It seems like Schlenzi is very taken with this guy too. Seems like she's kind of flirting with him. She thinks his dress is quite fetching, actually. She says, you look great in that. So now he doesn't want to take it off. So, Portius mentions how he met Klazina, and Mr. Scissor Frenick, is probably putting her in danger. Gaboon knows about Scissor Frenick. And he says, she's on the other side of that big dot. It's weird, the whole time the dress is like insulting everyone. It's like, what are you waiting for? Go through the dot and find your cousin. So Portia stays behind. They go through the dot portal. I'm just, I kind of just stepped back in my mind and was listening to me describing this whole plot of both stories. It's so nuts. I'm like, I kind of got lost in the plot, and then I'm like stepping back. I'm like, this is fucking crazy. This story is just so zany. And so they get to the other dimension. They ask for directions. This guy says, yeah, I saw her go through that gate. And they go through that portal gate. And they see, it looks like Schizophrenic is about to kill Klazina. This weird little guy. Oh, man. This is just, I love this. And so Gaboon throws a magic spell. And it turns Klazina temporarily into stone. And so the Schizophrenic kind of breaks himself on her when he tries to cut her. He blunts his blades and he hobbles away. So Klazina wakes up from her spell and then Schlitzie once again changes her dress. It has all these squares on it. She says, I command all the squares of this dress to fly off. How great that face is. I love the way he draws Schlitzie. Schlitzie's the pinhead from Freaks. All squares fly off Schlitzie's dress. One square grows bigger and it sucks them up. So I guess she's got magic of her own beyond just changing her dresses. So they come out back to whatever Earth, quote unquote Earth, and they see that dot is still there. The one that Klazini fell through. And so Gaboon, using his magic, he puts the dot on top of the square or vice versa, and they both vanish. They cancel each other out. And so they all go home, and once again, Schlenzi makes them dinner. And she says, it's the main dish, rabbit stew. And, of course, Klazina's all like, no, no. So it's just once again, that's like such a typical, like, goofy ending of a comic strip in the 20s or 30s. Like all that's needed is for her to fall off her chair and we should just see her feet. Like some no gross character. Oh man, that was fun. So apparently there's other short stories featuring these characters, and they listed off in the article, in the internet article. It's on Paul Gravitt's site, by the way, which is a really great comic site. He mentions at least he rattled off like 8 to 9 different anthologies he's been in. I think a bunch of them are Dutch or some kind of European, so they might not even be translated. I don't know. But there's a collection of a lot of these stories that came out. And also, at his death, when he died in January 2020, there was 2 unpublished graphic novels in his studio. And apparently they're coming out. I think one's called The Dream Maker, and there's a sequel to it. And I think they're full color, if I remember correctly from the article. He gives a little thanks to his friends and family. And here's the back cover with more beautiful illustration. Has quotes from Robert Crumb and Peter Begg, who both seem pretty impressed with Tobias Tak. So there you go, guys. I don't know where the hell you'd find this. Actually, I do. I forgot to mention a year after this, 2003, apparently Top Shelf published a version of this. I don't know if it looks different or what the dealio is with that, but I imagine that's a lot easier to find than this edition because I'd never even heard of this publisher before. So, hope you guys enjoyed looking at this as much as I did. I mean, there's something about this that just tickles me. I love his writing. I love his drawing. It's really dopey. But also, well, the art's not dopey. I think the art's amazing. But it's kind of crude, too. It's not like a fine illustration. It's just kind of amazing. So, Upside Down by Tobias Tak. Hopefully you can find it. And hopefully it's in that book that came out, I think in the teens, maybe, it said. Hopefully it's collected in there. I'm definitely on the lookout for that book, for sure. And when and if these graphic novels come out, the unpublished ones, I'm definitely getting them because they feature these same characters. So that's it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.